So this is the front page of the I newspaper. In this part A of the Khoodeelaar campaign, Khoodeelaar television channel, part A being broadcast online, not on the terrestrial or satellite platforms, but online on the internet from London, UK. And we are looking at the role and the contents of the narrative and the agenda of the Fleet Street papers. In other words, the 10 newspapers that are published, collectively known as Fleet Street, because those are the 10, all the newspapers from London addresses. And Fleet Street is collectively the name of all these papers together. So the I newspaper, Beaver Brook's Poisonous Legacy, the Daily Express, Dirty Digger, Rupert Murdoch's Scum, otherwise known as the Sun, and the associated newspaper group Daily Mail, which appeased Adolf Hitler and the Nazis in the 1930s, as did the Times as well. And the Scum and the Times, owned by Dirty Digger, Rupert Murdoch, and the Daily Borisgraph. Borisgraph is our name for what is to be called, or otherwise known as the Daily Telegraph, because of the corruption involved in the paper's role. Since about 2007, the Daily Telegraph, now known as the Borisgraph, has paid millions of pounds to Boris Johnson as bribes, political bribes, and bought his soul. Well, given that the French ambassador to the UK has confirmed to the Times itself that Boris Johnson is a congenital liar, whether Boris Johnson had a soul left to sell is a question. But essentially, the role of the Fleet Street newspapers is collectively, in terms of agenda, in terms of the narrative they promote and support and back and endorse, is a corrupt role, is an anti-democratic role, is an anti-societal role, and an anti-social role, and a corrupt role, solely for the purpose of keeping the crooks in power, so that the crooks can steal billions of pounds that belong to society and distribute the billions among their co-criminal mates who earn the kind of space and the claim by paying only a token amount of money to the coffers of the corrupt Conservative Party. So, who is doing this kind of narrative, agenda and diagnosis? Nobody else is doing it. Not the Glasgow University's media school, nor the Cardiff media school, journalism school, not the City of London University, City University's media school, especially not with Roy Greensdale having anything to do with it. Because as yesterday's or the weekend's publications admitted or acknowledged or noted, Greenslade, whom we have always denounced as a corrupt careerist, was keeping a secret. That is to say, he was actually secretly writing stuff supporting the IRS bombing of Britain. Now, we have no quarrel with the campaigners against imperialism anywhere, but we have a quarrel with the crooks who have many faces. And Roy Greensdale admitted, according to many versions published over the weekend, about his secret support for the IRS bombing campaign against Britain. Now, if he supported them, then he should have said that. And we made the point of referring to him yesterday in relation to the fact that the Supreme Court has backed Sajid Javid's decision to take away the British citizenship from a British-born young person, Shamima Begum. We also made the point that contrary to the mythology created by racists against Shamima Begum has not been tried for any crime by any court. And therefore, she has not been found guilty of anything. And before that, she has not been charged with any offense either. Now, we shall be asking these questions and others, we shall be putting to David Penick. Not because he will solve the problem, but we have an essential need to check the facts. And he was one of the two licensed law traders that appeared before the Supreme Court in the name of Shamima Begum and in representing her defense against the appeal from the Court of Appeal that the Home Secretary filed in the Supreme Court. Because if Shamima Begum had been charged with something and then tried for something and then found guilty of doing something criminal, then logically there could be a line of thinking that, well, she has been found guilty. So she can be treated as a criminal, as a convicted criminal. She is not a convicted criminal. Has Penick made this point to the Supreme Court? And also, we shall be making the same questions available to those others who in the last few years have acted, so-called, allegedly acted, as licensed law traders, solicitors, barristers, allegedly in the name of defending Shamima Begum's constitutional law rights, civil rights, and so on. Because we believe that none of these licensed law traders, and we include Penick as well, has got the slightest idea of what the whole thing has been about. These licensed law trader, lawyers, barristers, solicitors, soul cheaters have not shown due understanding of the law at any stage. So we shall be putting those forward. And to anyone who is watching this program in the last few days and has been noticing that we have been focusing extensively on the ruling by the Supreme Court against Shamima Begum, may like to know this. This is the kind of campaign that the Khoodeelaar campaign does and the movement for the defense of the community in the Eastern does, and the campaigns that I have created, the role, the standard, the method I have created over decades. Number one, tell the truth and nothing but the truth. And number two, demand the truth from the liars that you are faced with or you are campaigning against or you are having to campaign against. Demand truth and nothing but the truth from the liars. And number three, never give up on the demand for the truth. And truth is the biggest power in any campaign. And the truth has to be out in the open. And the call for the truth has to be out in the open. So what we have been saying about the role played by, for example, the local elected Hrs Council, the council in whose territory Shamima Begum lived all her life, as far as I know. And I shall be talking about that school, Bethnal Green School, which was known as another school, by another name. And my about 18 months of campaign to keep that school in a better shape. And I should say how, if the traitors in the community, Bangladeshi community, had not betrayed and taken the side of the liars, then we could have kept that school in the form that it had been for 100 years plus. And that school was a single-sex school, where Shamima Begum and her friends, girls, were allowed to go into that school after the 1994-95 campaign about the status of the school in terms of the composition. And I shall also refer to the successful campaign that I fought to defeat the Tower Hamlets Council and the Inner London Education Authority, who wanted to turn the Mulberry School, in effect, into a mixed-sex school in 1987. I fought that campaign alone, and I walked the streets of Tower Hamlets in the snow and in the rain, collecting signatures. I didn't have anyone in that school, and I had no prospect of having anyone in that school. And yet I did the campaign. And one of the things that I observed while collecting signatures to the petition opposing the proposed kind of mixed status policy that the ILEA and the Tower Hamlets Council were promoting, one of the things I found out was that the parents or the guardians whose addresses we had to address and attend were in the main in ignorance of what was happening and what was the impact and what would be the impact. And secondly, they thought that anyone like me who was asking them at their door to put a signature on the petition must be motivated by some kind of material interest. I mean, it would take 1,000 years to explain to any of them just how wrong they were about me. I never needed to go to anyone's door for anything. And the fact that I was having to do that showed that the community was, in terms of the rights and in terms of the entitlements and the risks and future, etc., essentially, with very small exceptions, the community was dead. That was 1987. And I had to collect about 3,200 signatures because it's one school and one proposal. So it didn't affect the parents and guardians of other schools. That is the explanation of the numbers. But 3,200 signatures were not available just at one door. I had to pick and I had to knock, and I had to do that on about 100 doors in order to get the 32 that I had, because the rest of the attempts failed. Either people weren't there or people wouldn't sign. But essentially, their kind of attitude was that I had some personal gain. I mean, the debt they owe me would amount to billions of pounds. Imagine one life established. And the fact that in that school, not any other in all of England, that school, Mulberry School or Tower Hamlets Girls' School, was the one that the wife of the American president visited. If I didn't have that foresight, not that the wife of the American president would visit that school decades later, but the fact that it was very important to protect a place for the girls, only girls, to get their schooling properly. And because that identity and the integrity of their school was maintained due to me, not due to the head teacher, Daphne Gold, I shall come to discuss an update on the corrupt, racist, ingrate Daphne Idiot Gold. Not only was she unfit to even see the depth of the threat that proposal by the ILEA posed to the whole community, her entire 300 or 400 year back ancestors could not do that either. I say that on the record because that is the stench of and the depth of racist idiocy and ingratitude. I did the work, I did the thinking, I did the walking, footwork, pen work, and all the rest of it. And this Daphne Gould, Dame Daphne, criminal racist Gould, didn't have the decency to understand what I was doing. I didn't do it for her. I didn't do it for any individual kind of person. I did it for the whole community. And I did it essentially, mainly for the children. Not my children biologically, but I treat them and treated them as if they were my children. In every sense, I had the duty of care to the extent that I demonstrated by keeping their school single-sex girls-only school. And the girls-only school excelled in comparison with the other schools in Tower Hamlets. So much so that the fact that it was one of the highly kind of successful schools reached the people who nominated the schools for Michelle Obama to visit. And this was the school she visited. She visited other places in other countries and in the UK as well. But this was the school that she chose. And that is the result of my work. I didn't do it for somebody to say thank you. I did it for somebody to see what I was doing and the worth of it to the whole community. That is the difference. And so Michelle Obama, in effect, made contracts twice. She came there and then she invited some of the girls to visit the White House. Now think about that. Has Lutfur Rahman, as the mayor incumbent for 5 calendar years or 6 calendar years, done anything like that, remotely like that? Has Biggs done anything remotely like that? They haven't. So this is campaign at its best. It is hard work, but it is campaign at its best. Not only did I not get anything, I didn't seek anything. It was my money. I gave up my months of my time, and anyone who was around at the time in terms of knowing what I was doing about that school would remember, but most of the ethnicity-linked morons don't even know what happened, don't even know the history of the Marlbury School, don't even know, it doesn't click that Michelle Obama visited that school because of the high achievement by the girls. Think about that. That is the kind of work that the Khoodeelaar campaign does and is doing for the community. That is 1987. And the constitutional law work, that is what I did. It was constitutional law work, straight and simple. But the complexity was the footwork that I had to do. Now, would David Pennick spend one day of his £20,000 a day fees linked day? If he did, how many £20,000 would he have given up? And the comfort he would have to give up. So what I'm saying about Shamima Begum is the same. When the attack proposal against the Mulberry School was made known to the parents and guardians of the girls attending the school at the time, and it was a kind of formal routine exercise, going through the motion. None of the parents were able to imagine what should be done or what could be done. One parent showed me a letter from the school, but that letter did not say there should be a campaign. It was me who devised the campaign instantly as the only way forward to stop it. Now, 1987, 10 years when Blair came in, 2007, 20 years, when we were coming to the end of the Khoodeelaar campaign's focus on stopping the crossrail hold. So, 87, 97, 2007, 20 years, and 2017, 30 years. And this is now the fourth calendar, 34 years. 34 calendar years ago. So if you add up the number of girls that have attended school since the decision to merge the school was stopped by us, you can see thousands of girls have passed through. Thousands of girls from Mulberry School have passed through in the last 34 calendar years. And you can imagine the impact, because many of those girls have been able to go forward with further education and gain diplomas, degrees, and more. That would have been made absolutely difficult. That would have been made absolutely difficult if the school had been kind of merged. They were phasing it. They were saying that they would bring the sixth form into that school. The boys and girls would mix. But that would completely mess up the whole environment for proper schooling and proper studies and preparations, at least to the extent that the girls have been able to enjoy the kind of atmosphere in the last 34 years. So what would have happened if the Mulberry School was performing like the other schools in the borough? Most of them. There would be the normality of dismal performance and the normality of disastrous deprivation, backwardness. But compared to the ordinary result, the average results and the performance, Mulberry School has been performing on a level that is only available in richer boroughs, to richer parents, richer children, and privately paid education. Tower Hamlets, Mulberry School, these girls, in the main, have been from families, from homes with low income or very low income, which would have made it absolutely doubly difficult for the girls to perform in any way significantly well. Quite apart from that, 1987 was the year after 3 or 4 years that I had spent informally guarding the school. I was in New Roads. I was guarding the school because boys, Bangladeshi boys in the main, were literally there. And there was a lot of abortion taking place as doctors, medical sources who knew what was going on and who knew me and my position in the kind of platform of the campaigner. They told me, look, you have to do something to stop it. Too many abortions are taking place. That was volunteered to me. I didn't know. I was not a doctor, or I was not having any contact with the hospital. But this series of like an epidemic of abortions was going on in the London Hospital, Royal London Hospital. One of the doctors who knew so many parents and so many girls was the late B.B. Chowdhury, who gave me the graphic statistics and information as to what was going on, the disaster that was going on. B.B. Chowdhury approached me for his own various cases that he needed help on, because the licensed law traders, either he couldn't pay the high fees that the QCs or whatever were demanding, or they didn't know what the hell to do. So he approached me at various points for help and advice, and I helped him. So I prevented B.B. Chowdhury from being struck off. Now, the stupidity in the community is that my relationship with B.B. Chowdhury was like this, that I was advising him, but the others were worshipping him. He literally told me that the Bangladeshis, the Silotis, the patients that he had on the roll worshipped him. So that's the kind of relationship. I'm doing all these things, and these people are doing the other things. They are worshipping somebody who is coming to me for help. Anyone denying that? Let me know, and I'll give you chapter and verse. And go to the GMC and find out the extent of the work that I did for B.B. Chowdhury and saved him from being struck off. And B.B. Chowdhury made millions of pounds as a GP, directly and indirectly. So, the campaign for Shamima Begum would be like this. Everyone else is asleep or dead or totally kind of intimidated by the courts and the other things. And our campaign is, first of all, to demand those answers that we have been asking. Answers from the Tower Hamlets Council as well as from the Home Office. The Home Office questions are about the Prevent scheme. Who in Tower Hamlets was responsible for the Prevent program? Did the Home Office ask? Before Sajid Javid actually struck her and took away her British citizenship, did Sajid Javid bother about the facts as to how this child, Shamima Begum, came to be in the position that she came to be, and she was in? And look at this. This headline is relevant, related. It's not about Prevent program as such, but it's not very far. And what the Mail is saying, the corrupt Daily Mail is saying, is that half of the British police stations close in just 10 years. And they claim that it's a damning Mail investigation revelation. That's a lie. The question of the police and the role of the police and the police stations is something that the Khoodeelaar campaign has exclusively commented on and asked questions about the role of the police. And we say that again. The policing, whenever it was established in the British form, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, whatever, the policing has been overdue for replacement by something else. Because policing, as is perceived generally publicly by the processor as a result of the brainwashing, Dixon of this green or that green, The policing doesn't exist, hasn't existed for decades. And most of the policing is kind of left alone by the parliament and as well as the government. And the judiciary is as corrupt as the ineffective policing. So there is no culture of accountability at all. There is no culture of transparency or holding to account the police. Now, coming from any person with my background, like Asian background, an Asian Muslim, like, in terms of community, or African background, somebody through the Caribbean route, any comment, any question, any remark about the police would be instantly seized by the racists, thinking that we are making an anti-police comment. Far from the truth. I particularly personally think that police, good, competent, and fair policing is absolutely essential for the good functioning of society. That is what I would like to see. And because I would like to see this, I am concerned about the fact that policing doesn't exist. I could give hundreds of examples. Not going to give those hundreds, but I could. And anyone viewing this must believe that, because that is consistent with everything else I say and have been saying. And they're saying here that half of British police stations have closed in just 10 years. And they're making the wrong claim. There is a revelation of the Daily Mail's investigation. And it says more than half of Britain's police stations have closed in the past 10 years. A shocking Mail investigation reveals today. It's absolute lies. What they're saying then is that at least 667 stations with front counters allowing the public to talk to officers have been shut down since 2010 in drastic cost-cutting measures. Now let's ask this question. First of all, who took the measures? Drastic measures, cutting costs. Of course, it's the Conservatives. Conservatives that the Daily Mail supports. And Conservatives on whose behalf the Daily Mail routinely publishes blatant lies and denies things that have been happening. That's number one. Number two is, it is a fantasy. It is a fiction. It's a lie to say that the public could talk to officers through or at the front counters. Absolute lie. Because police stations like the one that was cited in Brick Lane, small one in Brick Lane, never worked as a police station, never worked to receive reports like they're saying people could make through the front counters. Even the one in Bethnal Green in the current Bethnal Green police station, you cannot do that. And the fact that you cannot do that, by you, I mean the public, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, whatever, the fact that you could not do that and you cannot do that is not being publicized, is not being treated as a serious failing, as a serious deficit, as a seriously essential public service missing. So there is no accountability for the police, and there is no rigorous or any demand by the so-called opposition about the policing. So we go back to Shamima Begum. This is exactly what is happening about Shamima Begum and the other children that have been betrayed and let down by the people who are responsible, have been responsible for safeguarding duties, for safeguarding children. Now, there is no record. There is absolutely no record in the published so-called reports by the Tar Hamlets Council during 2010 up to now that even refers to safeguarding children duties being audited, reported, and the outcomes being tallied and compared and contrasted, and recommendations being sought and recommendations being implemented. No record. And what has happened, so in the last, say, 20 years of Tar Hamlets Council, one in 1999 or thereabouts, at a Labour Party meeting held in what is the Tar Hamlets Council's council chamber, as a place that a meeting could take place, not to be confused with any sitting of the council or council's committee. That meeting was held not entirely directly resulting from only my work as a member of the now defunct Tar Hamlets local government committee, of which I was actively a member in those years. At that meeting, I was told by Abbasuddin alias Halal that what I was saying about Tony Blair's use of the language or abuse of the English language, he didn't need a lecture from me. He didn't name me, but his answer was totally inappropriate, immature, infantile, ignorant, and offensive. Because my question was not directed at him personally. My question was directed at the councillors in the name of the Labour Party. And my question was focused. My question was focused on the abuse of language and the misuse of the role by those in elected position in the name of or on behalf of the so-called Labour Party. Abbasuddin alias Halal was only one of them. He was in post probably as leader of the group on Tar Hamlets Council at the time, but he had no qualification, let alone qualities, on which to rely and to make that stupid, corrupt, offensive remark about me, asking the question about the use and abuse of the language. 20 years plus on, Abbasuddin Halal politically is in a sink state, in a deeply sinking position career-wise, because his entire life has been dedicated to seeking a position. And Abbasuddin alias Halal has been the most assiduous self-promoter among the Bangladeshis in Tar Hamlets in relation to the Labour Party, in relation to the elected posts. And there is nothing that Abbasuddin alias Halal can actually list as his achievement in terms of defending the community, in terms of defending the rights of the community, etc. And we come to 1st of March 2006. It was a Wednesday. Today is Monday, but 1st of March. So the 1st of March, Wednesday, was the day that we held the demonstration. We held the rally outside the Mulberry Place, condemning Tower Hamlets Council's role as the council inviting the Crossrail Hole attack on the East End of London. Even George Galloway was there. He turned up late. Typical, absolutely typical lazy behavior by George Galloway, who never turned up on time. He did turn up. And although he says that he doesn't drink, on occasions like that, and I have seen many occasions where George Galloway has arrived late and has delivered a speech sounding as if he has had too much to drink. Of course, he says he's a teetotaler and he doesn't drink alcohol. But the way he speaks at those events, he comes across as having drunk. Not only drunk, but drunk too much. It may be a condition. I don't know. He has not published what condition it is, but that is what he was doing at that time. He came late and he gave a spiel, which was just doing the routine. The routine being that he was a local MP, and this Crossrail Hole attack affected the local constituency. That's the main measure of it. He delivered. He never spoke against the Crossrail Hole plot with the passion and the commitment that he has shown in, say, for example, delivering his hatred against Nicola Sturgeon or the SNP, which is what he's doing this week. And he has shamelessly, and I tell George Galloway, who is younger than me in every respect, that he has no idea just how stupid his remark was that he didn't sue me for libel because he thought I didn't have the money. The money that my family and I actually have been related to. We don't want to boast. The money, the wealth and resource, our family historically has been aware of and able to exercise control and claim on, would buy the entirety of his place of birth and more. And he was stupid to say that to me, that he didn't sue me because he thought I couldn't afford the money. I invite Galloway to sue me anytime. He cannot sue me because he has to be telling the truth in order to be able to sue. He cannot tell the truth against me. He will be having to tell lies if he has to sue me. He just doesn't know anything about where I come from. He knows some people from the area that I come from, but he doesn't know where I come from and what I represent in terms of everything. What I do for society is not because I want to have a career like him. No way. I don't need to do anything to do a career. I can become an MP independently if I really stand and really want to do that. I can become, in England, I can become an MP. Even now, Galloway cannot. Galloway will have to lie more, much more than he has been doing in the past. And today is the day that we part company with George Galloway because he is now voting for the Conservatives and boasting about it. Let George Galloway get a seat from the Conservatives. If he can do that, I shall review and update on my review. But I don't believe that the Conservatives will give him a seat. Because the Conservatives, like George Galloway, have a congenital dislike of the people whom George Galloway has ingratiated himself to over a very long time in order to make a career for himself as a champion of the Palestinians. He is not a champion of the Palestinians at all. He is a white man who has been exploiting the fact that no other white man in Britain, in British public life, has risked speaking for the Palestinians. So he has created a niche spot for himself. He hasn't fooled us, and he has not fooled me. I have considered everything that has been publicly accessible about him. And I believe that George Galloway, contrary to the various periodic myths, has behaved dishonestly and racistly most of the times. Why is he silent about Shamima Begum? Has he said anything? If he has, then let him send a direct message showing that I am speaking ill-briefed. And if he has spoken about Shamima Begum, what has he said? If he has spoken about Shamima Begum being betrayed by Lutfur Rahman, what has he said? He could not say anything that is critical of the gang that he associated himself with in those years as part of the careerist detour arrangements. His detours have been successful only when he has detoured by exploiting the Muslims in the particular areas, Bradford West, and before that Bethnal Green and Bow. Now from today onwards, George Galloway cannot mention either, because we shall point out to him that he is a liar. He said on many occasions that he is born to defy and oppose the Conservatives and their ideology, and that he is an anti-racist. He has been sucking up to the most notorious racist in this country, Nigel Nasty Farage. And now he is worshipping at the feet of the racist Boris Johnson. How dare he insult communities in the way that he has been doing? He stood against a Labour candidate in the Midlands, and he lost his deposit, didn't he? And he boasted that he would topple the Labour Party candidate, while at the same time saying that he was not targeting Jeremy Corbyn. He didn't help Jeremy Corbyn at all. He begged Nigel Farage to give him the Peterborough by-election seat. And Farage said, in effect, to George Galloway, get lost. Even nasty Nigel Farage told George Galloway to get lost. So this man, I'm not calling him mentally insecure or insane or whatever, but there is something not adding up about him. He he has detoured more times than any known person in public life, so-called, in this country, except, of course, the lunatic joke candidates that stand at by-elections, like the monster loony, raving loony, whatever he used to do. But George Galloway has become worse than a laughing stock by doing so many detours in every way. And he has the gall to say to me that he didn't sue me for libel because he thought I didn't have the money. Now he has to sue me and find out if I have the money or not. I mean, in political terms, I can defend anything that George Galloway can sue me for, because I will not be defending a lie. I will be defending the truth. So there won't be any need for me to have, in the fantasy scenario that George Galloway imagined, because I would be telling the truth. And there is more chance of my truth being established with publicly accessible evidence than George Galloway in his stupidity and ignorance thinks or thought. I can justify making claims for more than David Penick ever can justify as a QC, because the work that I do legally in the field of law is far superior than Penick has ever had to do. And I said that on the record. Penick or any other licensed law trader, I can beat any of them. And I tested Michael Mansfield, and his timidity and his stupidity and his greed came across. He cannot take me on, Michael Mansfield, on the evidence. On the evidence. Repeat, on the evidence. And there is no lawyer, licensed law trader, that can compete with me in the legal field. Let them do it. The most they can do is to sneakily kind of invent some kind of scenario and dodge. And this is based on evidence. It's not based on some kind of fantasy on my part. Evidence of many years, many years of serious issues and cases that I've been doing, and I'm still doing. Some people watching this may know what I have been doing about the claims against Amazon. Because of legal reasons, as they say, I will not go into details at this stage. But Amazon have not been able to answer my questions. Nor has any of the kind of corrupt chambers or any of the soul cheaters or the legal ombudsman morons. So, having said all of that, by way of elaboration, update, I go back to the question of Shamima Begum and assure anyone watching this that the campaign to get justice for Shamima Begum is on. And we shall not rest until the truth be told about who betrayed this child and her friends at the time that they were betrayed. Tower Hamlets Council betrayed them, and we shall be asking questions this week of the Home Office to answer questions. And we shall keep viewers posted or updated on what we find out and what we find. The questions about George Galloway and Luther Rahman gets complicated when we look at the role he played in 2014. In November 2014, at the Mile End gathering held for the kind of promotion of Luther Rahman as against Eric Pickles, the then community secretary, who had declared that special measures were taken or about to be taken against Tower Hamlets Council based on the Price Waterhouse report. Now we spell all these out also for the benefit of the likes of Ted Jury and others who became obsessed with Luther Rahman at that stage. And we said that we haven't given up and we have not stopped. We have been updating regularly on Luther Rahman and the impact of his corruption on the whole community. But Ted Jury has gone quiet. Why has he gone quiet? We don't know. And we don't want to speculate. But we just put on the record the fact that he is quiet on the public front, at least, about Luther Rahman. We are concerned because of the impact of Luther Rahman's betrayal and failures on children like Shamima Begum. Now, how many people sitting on the public gallery? Because there was a significant dominance by apparent supporters of Luther Rahman over 3 or 4 years while he was in post, by persons on the public gallery, almost all of them, not necessarily every one of them, but most of them Bangladeshis. And they would shout abuse at anyone who came across as being critical of Luther Rahman. And they focused their kind of venom at Peter Golds, who is the conservative councillor. Although he is not from Tower Hamlets, but he has been in Tower Hamlets for enough period of time, long enough to be considered as a local councillor. And Peter Golds is of course guilty of his own racist stupidity and backwardness and hatred. Having said that, I and the campaign do not consider them as enemies. We consider them as people who have got racist and stupid ideas, but we don't think that they have no rights. We believe that Peter Golds has rights to comment on something that is going on in the public sphere, within the council, via the council, and so on. Having given him the kind of generosity and generous tolerance, is it right to ask what has he said about the council's role over Shamima Begum and in the field of safeguarding children? Has he done that? I don't believe so. I don't think so. Because that kind of question would only be raised by somebody who cared for the rights of a child like Shamima Begum. Peter Golds doesn't. So why is Ted Jury silent about this? That's the question. And we shall be pursuing the question aimed at Ted Jury in a very detailed way throughout this whole campaign that we are calling Campaign for Justice for the children betrayed by Tower Hamlets Council. Currently, these children are featured or represented in the person or in the image of Shamima Begum. The campaign that I did against the London ambulance and the health secretary, Virginia Bottomley at the time in 1994, after the sad demise of the 11-year-old child Nasima Begum, is another model of how to do campaigning. Get the facts right, and put the facts and the questions to the guilty party. And we did that. And as a result of that campaign, as a result of the pressure created by the campaign, the London Ambulance Service was investigated. Okay, it wasn't investigated as thoroughly as it should have been, but it was investigated. A committee was set up and all the rest of it. And the Secretary of State resigned. How many campaigners have done that? And how many such outcomes has David Penick produced, charging £20,000 per day? I mean, if I multiply the days I have spent in the campaign against Virginia Bottomley and London Ambulance Service and the Royal London Hospital after the death of Nasima Begum, then it would be millions of pounds I would be charging, but I don't. George Galloway, take note. You have completely no idea just how wrong you are and how racist you are to treat me as if I was another of your fans in the Brick Lane area. I was never your fan, and I didn't have to be your fan. And you were stupid to say what you said to me. You never had the money to go to court in the first place. You only had the money when the other people, the donors, gave you the money. Look at your history, recorded history, and the allegations made against you by the Newsnight program, which asserted that Benazir Bhutto paid you lots of money. Why haven't you sued the Newsnight program? Did you know that long before you even heard of Benazir Bhutto, I actually exposed her as a liar and as a phony? And did you know that I actually defeated her father Zulfikar Bhutto at a public gathering held at the Institute of Engineers in Dhaka in the 1960s? Did you know that? Could you defeat Zulfikar Ali Bhutto yourself? I did that. So you are a moron to misunderstand me and underestimate me in the way that you did. And your racist, brainwashed morons are as guilty as you were on those occasions. And you were ungrateful. You were totally ungrateful. So going back to the event held at the Water Lily Center in November 2014, you, George Galloway, were stupid and racist and idiotic to make the claim that it was you who paved the way for a Bengali person to become MP for the area. And he said that it was the wrong Bengali. And he spoke about Roshnara Ali, of course. How dare you say that the electoral power of the electors is as a result of your doing some favor to the electorate? How dare you? You are exposed as a completely opportunistic liar, racistly abusing the whole of electors that have ever given you their votes. You don't have any shame in saying that you are going to vote for the Tories. You insulted the people of Bradford West, and before that you insulted the people of Bethnal Green and Bow. And then you came back to the Water Lily Center to insult more. How many white voters do you think voted for you in May 2005? The majority of the votes came from the Bangladeshis. And that was because of campaigns like our campaign, because we said that Una King needed to be ousted. That Una King had insulted the electors. We never needed you. You needed us. Anyone else but Una King. That is what we wanted. And that would have happened. But the community was kind to allow you a home in the most desperate time of your life as a kind of wannabe MP. Detour from detour from detour. Your own Scotland rejected you. So you came to the East End of London, one of the most deprived boroughs in all of England. And you were rescued by people, deprived people like me. You just have no idea how wrong you were. I never worked for anyone for money. Did you know that? I didn't live on benefits, you moron. The experience I've had in England is an experience that has been imposed on me, but that's for another edition. All my life, I have been giving people things. Did you know that, you moron? Where did I get the money? It didn't come from the public sources. It came from my family. And from me, because I gave of my resources. So if you want to sue me, you liar, sue me in the High Court for defamation. And you will find out just how much of your life has been full of lies. I never ingratiated myself to any head of government or any state. Heads of governments have approached me, and I have said no. Did you know that, you moron? I have principles. So today I am telling you directly on the record that you are a liar, George Galloway. And you are a shameless liar, ungrateful liar, and a corrupt one. Sue the BBC's Newsnight for saying the things that they have said, and you have not sued them. Things that they have said makes you come across as a completely dishonest, selfish, careerist opportunist. Go and sue the BBC and sue me as well. You came to Tower Hamlets and you decided that the East London Mosque represented Tower Hamlets. Well, East London Mosque is a mosque. If you treat this as a mosque, that is fine. But what we are referring to is the gang that shares the three things that are available situated in the complex called the East London Mosque. The three places. One is the mosque itself. The other is the East London kind of the Muslim center. And the other one, which is the one that you have been mostly in contact with, is a thing that I don't know, but it is mentioned, which is called the IFE, which is the current form of what used to be the Jamaat-e Islami Bangladesh kind of youth centered activity in the UK. Now, these people are not, these people who are on the committees and whatever, they are not accountable to the ordinary Muslims, the Musallis. But you chose to put your faith in them and their wisdom. And look what they have done. They have produced, quote, victory for Lutfur Rahman, and he ended up being found guilty of corrupt behavior by the Election Commission. That is the height of your wisdom, because you praised this person in November 2014, few months before Richard Morey declared him having been a corrupt person. Corrupt means corrupt whatever. And you said, wrongly, first of all, you said that you had created the route for Bengali to become an MP, which is absolute rubbish. And then you said that Eric Pickles was wrong to send the commissioners. And he said other things that were absolutely wrong. First of all, you didn't know who the commissioners were. And you didn't actually know the extent of your stupidity about local government and commissioners and the various historic events. The commissioners are complete jokes. But you and Ken Lying Still Livingston at that stupid rally in November 2014 at the Water Lily Center made too much of those commissioners. These commissioners are liars. Unlike you, I went to the commissioners and told them to their face or faces in front of Biggs and others in the town hall that they were racists and they were liars. Have you done that? Have you done that, Galloway, to them? I have done that. And I'm still doing it because there are so many things I'm doing. Constitutional law actions, constitutional law campaigns, and so on. None of your racist advisors, including the racist liar Ron McKay, has got the slightest idea about what work I have been doing for decades. You would not be doing that without getting paid. You would not be getting paid for any of this because this is all moral work, ethical work, which doesn't bring money. And neither you nor the racist liar, Ron McKay, and let the racist liar sue me. These are the liars that you were advised by while you were in Tower Hamlets and being fed by Ajmal Hussain. It is the Ajmal Hussain who fed you that sued or caused the actual petition to be filed against Lutfur Rahman. Have you seen the irony of your stupidity? When on the 1st of July 2006, you asked me what your speech should be about the fast solutions. I told you. But you were too much in Haque, too much compromised by your relationship with Ajmal Hussain to change your line very soon. And you gave a stupid speech at the Altavali Park, which amounted to nothing. And you gave a stupid speech in the House of Commons, praising this Labour MP in a way that was embarrassingly transparently exposed as you making a pass at her in words. Sue me for this and deny the record. Now, that same MP turned out to be a crook not much later. But your speech was an offensive one against the rights of the people who had been robbed. You shifted. You, George Galloway, corruptly or ignorantly shifted the pressure from the crooks that had stolen the money onto the bureaucratic shoulders of the government, which is absolutely stupid. That showed your ignorance. Our campaign against the Crossrail hole succeeded because we identified the correct sequence of colluders, and we focused on the main local colluders, which is the Tower Hamlets Council. Instead of keeping the focus fixed on the crooks who had stolen the money, you, George Galloway, idiotically or corruptly or dishonestly shifted the attention away and started to talk about the government's duty to regulate. You complete moron. There was nothing to do with the British government regulation. It was to do with the Bangladeshi criminals based at the East London Mosque, with the headquarters of the First Solution at the London Muslim Centre building, that had stolen the money from these Bangladeshis. Why haven't you published a report on what happened? Because you knew that you made a stupid speech which didn't have to be getting the justice for the people that had been robbed. And today we are saying this because you are now voting for the Conservatives. What a moron you are, George Galloway. Now, the speech that you gave against the victims of the First Solution thieves was produced almost the total copy from Hansard in a thing called London Bangla or Bangla Post. It was Bangla Post, I think. London Bangla is the later one, but the Bangla Post. And it is a completely dishonestly produced, corrupt, ethnicity-linked piece. So I said to them, so-called editor, that I should be given the space to reply to your stupid piece or speech. And those liars lied. They said they would publish it. And then when they didn't, and I said, why didn't you publish my comment against Galloway? They said they didn't receive it. That's a lie. Because I personally delivered the copy to the morons in the Hollybush Gardens or whatever at the time. So local liars have been facilitating your lying and betrayal. Let Ron McKay or whoever deny any of this. Let them sue me. Ron McKay, I think, is a dangerously irresponsible and a thug. I think he physically kind of threatens people. Let him deny it. Let you deny it. Racists like you cannot fool all the people all the time. The fact that you were put on the shoulders of some Bangladeshi youngsters in Brick Lane, I think you got the wrong idea about them. They don't have the depth necessary to investigate their kind of, if you like, relationship with the likes of you. Because it is such a racist country, any white person who comes across as being adept at coming across as friendly, brotherly, like you do or you did, is given the benefit of the doubt and the thank you. I myself complimented you in my speech on Saturday, the 11th of February 2006, at the small room in the Brady Center. Do you remember that? You were sitting next to the person who chaired the meeting. And you were clapping. You were clapping, demonstrably clapping, with apparent applause as I spoke. So we are a generous people, and I am very generous. I have been very generous all my time, and I am completely generous in my attitude until somebody brazenly abuses the generosity. So you, George Galloway, made all kinds of claims at that Water Lily Center in defense of Luther Roman's career. But it never occurred to you that you were praising the frontier of a local council. You were not praising an ethical person or the frontier of an ethical organization, let alone movement, let alone campaign. So it didn't occur to you that Tower Hamlets Council might have been a corrupt council for years when you delivered that speech, that is. So that was 2014 when you spoke. So how long before that was April 2006? 8 years. So 8 years previously, you, George Galloway, spoke at a so-called press conference you held at Ajmal Hussein's restaurant. And you called Michael Crook. Now that name is given to him by me, and you knew that. And you didn't acknowledge my role in giving him the name Michael Crook. Nor did you remember what I had said to his face in March 2006 at the meeting near my island, which in Bow West, where he boasted that you had booked the hall. What was the point of that boast, Galloway? In my speech, I called Michael Crook, and he was sitting there. Did you call him Michael Crook originally? No. You didn't even know who the people were. I gave you notes about one of them who had been most actively campaigning for your sacking in January. So you are not even familiar with the people that were present at the meeting, that were actively campaigning against you. I defended you against them, not because I owed you anything, but in terms of the ethical rights of the community and the needs of the community, and in light of the evidence of their wrongdoing, I had to point out that they were more wrong in comparison with what they were claiming. Have you done anything like that for me ever in your life? You would know how to begin, because it's not in your personality to help people and be generous to people without a selfish return being guaranteed for your work. How dare you compare yourself with me? You are now a conservative voting parasite. Parasite is what you have been, because you have been seeking donations and money. When I visited the respect office in Shoreditch, shortly after you came back from the Big Brother house, I witnessed you opening the envelopes and neatly, as a practice machine, taking the money, putting the money in your pocket and giving the rest of the envelopes to persons in the office. You did that in a mechanical way, in a very practiced way. You took the money side, the cash, notes. How dare you do that and assume that I didn't notice that? I have been kind to you since then, and I have not publicly made that known. This is the first time I'm making this public. And I'm doing this directly as a result of your boasting that you are now going to vote conservative. There is a limit. And I don't owe you, I never owed you anything, but I don't most certainly owe you any legal duty to not say what I said just now about your taking the money, the currency notes in your pocket, and giving the rest of the envelope to whoever else was there. And there were literally, if not hundreds, there were literally dozens of envelopes being opened by you. And you took the money neatly away. What have you been doing in the cause of the Palestinians, Galloway? What have you been doing? The Palestinians are being murdered, massacred, and damaged every single day. What have you been doing? You have no position, and you have no power, and you have absolutely no influence. Tell me I am wrong. Publish what I don't know, what I am wrong about. Your involvement in the name of Palestinians. To most people who are ignorant about the wider facts, a white man standing on a truck or a bus, surrounded by mainly Asian people or Arab people, shouting slogans apparently against the occupation of the Palestinian land. It's a funny kind of appearance, isn't it? It's George Galloway, nobody else. It's the white man. That white skin is the one that attracts, isn't it? And you have been exploiting it. You got married to too many Arabs or Arabic linked women. And then you thought that you had exhausted the reserve. So you moved on. How dare you do that? You do that like a mechanical thing. One Asian or one Muslim woman after another. I mean, there is something odd, very wrong about that. And then you have no respect for the Muslim community. You have nothing but contempt for Muslim women who tell the truth, as you have shown in Bradford West and elsewhere. The woman who you accused of all sorts of sexual misconduct was not targeted just for her alleged misconduct, but she was targeted as a Muslim Asian woman who had the gall, who had the audacity to question you and challenge you and tell you that you were a liar and that you were a racist. What have you done to prevent any person anywhere being violated? Come on, bring the records on. You don't have to name people, but give enough details so that it can be verified. You haven't done any of that. All your career, you have been a parasite, as the local biography and local writers in Scotland have been saying for a long time. And the charity or the series of charities that you have been involved in, every single involvement of your your careerist, opportunistic involvement in the charities have included serious allegations against you of abuse, of embezzlement, and so on. But because of the regulatory regime being stupid, I mean the Charity Commission, they have not been able to, they have not chosen to do the rigorous investigation into your activities that would have produced different outcome and findings. Deny this and sue me. Sue me, George Galloway, for defamation. Because I have no agenda against you personally, but I have absolutely total opposition to your behavior. You cannot be saying the boastful things you have said now about voting conservatives. If you were honest and if you had any respect for the thousands of people who have actually been conned by you into giving you money, as I said, in various forms. I witnessed in one particular kind of event that I saw in the respect office in Shoreditch. But that must be tip of the iceberg. You have absolutely no gratitude to the people that have helped you, rescued you from obscurity and complete disaster. And you have shown serial proclivities to be ungrateful to the Muslims. And in the context of Bethnal Green and Bow, you have shown no respect to the electors. You said in April 2006, the Tower Hamlets Council was the most corrupt local council you had seen in 30 years of involvement in public life. That was April, either April 8th or April 9th, 2006. And 4 years later, you dedicated yourself to making that council or helping make that council even more corrupt. Have you got any idea how stupid that is? You have no moral integrity, George Galloway. Now think about this and send me a reply challenging anything that I have said. And I will deal with every single component as fast as I can. You owe the people that have voted for you in Bradford West and in Bethnal Green and Bow big apologies for your lying. And you're voting for the Conservatives. You're seeking candidature from the worst public liar and racist, Nigel Farage. You cannot have both. You backed him. If you deny that you backed him, then publish the details of your communications, conversations with Nigel Nasty Farage. And we shall accordingly update our comments, assertions, statements, and descriptions